up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Today in Titletown Packers Podcast. I'm joined by my co-host Mason. How are you doing, Mason?
Great, man. Another Packers win, and I'm excited to talk about it with you.
Yeah, it was another Packers win. Packers are 4-0, and we're going to get into all the things that made that happen, and we're going to talk about the offense, the defense, and discuss some of the things we need to do heading into the bye week. So, Mason, what are your initial thoughts that you had from the game, and just give me a little bit of a synopsis of what you thought of the game overall.
Offensively, obviously, during the whole week, we weren't sure if Devontae was going to play. We knew Allen Lazard just had core muscle surgery, so we knew he wasn't going to play. So we knew our weapons on offense were going to be pretty limited. Obviously we got Aaron Jones, and he's always going to be a big part of our offense. But other than that, we were kind of speculating who's the guy going to be. Is it going to be MVS? Is Robert Tonyan going to step up again? Is it going to be Darius Shepard, Malik Taylor? We had no idea, and obviously, if you watched the game, you saw Robert Tonyan just absolutely go off. 6 catches, 98 yards for 3 touchdowns, and just kind of exploded out of nowhere. He already had 2 touchdowns going into week 4, and now he's leading all tight ends in touchdowns with 5. He was kind of the focal point. Him and Jamal Williams both in the passing game. Just Aaron was trying to find his tight ends and his running backs mainly. Pretty sure he only had 8 completions to wide receivers out of his 27 attempts, which is only 29% of his completions. So yeah, that was definitely a part of the game plan, was just feed those running backs and feed those tight ends, and it worked beautifully. Aaron had a beautiful game, 327 yards, 4 touchdowns, and only had 7 incompletions. So yeah, just a crazy game from him, and this offense is rolling even without their number 2 and number 1 wide receivers. It was just good to see. And now we got a stud tight end that we can look forward to seeing grow even more this season.
Yeah, Tonyan, the thing about his game was he caught 6 passes and he was only targeted 6 times. So he's bringing the ball in, he's catching everything, and he's obviously having a huge impact on what we do on offense. And then we all saw that cool play where he got tripped up by a DB, and he did a somersault type of move, and then he got up and no one was around and caught that touchdown. And that was probably one of my favorite plays of the game. And I think it's important for a guy like him to step up, and somebody needed to. And it was this guy who has kind of been waiting to break out, and then we finally saw him do that on Monday against the Falcons. And, it's a bright future for him in this offense, as long as he's the number 1 guy that Aaron's targeting in that tight end room.
Especially now, as you guys might have saw, we lost Josiah DeGuara for the rest of the season. He tore his ACL against Atlanta. So that just means more targets for Robert Tonyan, and hopefully we can see Jace kind of grow in this offense now. And even we didn't have Mercedes last week, but Mercedes is probably going to get more playing time too without DeGuara in there. These tight ends are going to be a big part of this offense. If hopefully I believe we do know for a fact Devontae is going to be back for the week 6 game against Tampa, because he was already saying if it was up to him, he would have went, but it was a doctor's decision not to have him play, which was honestly kind of thankful, because on the other side of the ball, Julio Jones was going through the same thing. I believe he had a hamstring injury coming into this week, and he re-aggravated in the second quarter and just didn't play. And now his status is now questionable for next week. I have him on my fantasy team, and it says he's projected 0 points for next week. So that's fantastic. And just kind of thankful we held out Devontae, because we obviously got the dub, and we'll be fully healthy for Tampa in 2 weeks.
I mean, when we were previewing this game, we had the idea that Allen Lazard was going to be healthy. It was only after that when we found out that he ended up, having this major injury that's going to cost him 4 to 6 weeks, and he got this surgery. So that was a bit of a surprise for all of us, because he had that amazing game, 146 yards, career game for him. And then, the fact that he gets out and he has this surgery after playing through it the whole game, that was a surprise to all of us. So we definitely were going in there with less guys than we wanted, and even the guy that was replacing our number 1, Davante Adams, now he's out, and we're in a bit of a tough situation. I mean, it was something that we had to overcome, not knowing if Devontae was going to go, knowing that Lazard was going to be out. That's a tough job for the coaches to kind of game plan around guys possibly not going and this and that, and having guys that have never caught footballs in the NFL. I mean, so the fact that we were able to overcome some of those things was impressive to me. In terms of Matt LaFleur doing a great job, and obviously Aaron Rodgers getting on the same page with those guys quickly.
It was impressive. I mean, Darius Shepard and Malik Taylor only had one reception between the two going into this game, like career-wise. And Darius Shepard's came last year, I believe, against Detroit. So those two guys were, set up to start this week. And, we had Tyler Irving, too, that is now listed as a wide receiver who his whole career, he's been a running back and mainly a return man. And he was our other guy. And besides MVS, Bron, I kind of want to talk about MVS a little bit just because I personally thought he was going to be the guy to go off if there was someone from our wide receiver core to, have a big game. And it kind of didn't happen. He had 4 catches, 45 yards on 8 targets. He only caught half of his targets. And the play that stuck out to me, Bron, was Aaron was targeting him in the end zone. And Aaron had a beautiful pass to him for a back shoulder, but I don't think MVS was expecting that back shoulder pass, or he just kind of, kept running and thought he could maybe moss the receiver. And he ended up just going up with one hand and trying to pull it in really awkwardly. Yeah. And there's some chemistry issues going on with MVS and A-Rod right now, even though out of training camp, A-Rod was really hyping MVS up. I don't know what's going on, but at least we got Robert Tonyan. I think that Aaron's forming a really good chemistry with him right now.
Yeah, the thing with MVS, and that play was definitely one of those where you wanted to see him come down with that. I mean, Aaron Rodgers only had 6 incompletions, and MVS had 4 of them, catching only 4 of 8 passes. A lot of the work that was done in the passing game was, there was a couple plays where MVS got held or interfered with, and then they moved the chains, and that was his biggest gains, really, in the passing game. Other than that, I mean, MVS, it's hard because he's so inconsistent, but then there's a time when we have Devontae Adams, we have Alan Lazard, and then he'll just, sneak a bunch of nice plays in behind those two guys, and it's more difficult when he's that number 1 wide receiver and they're covering him like it. And I think that's definitely part of the problem. But we didn't see that with Alan Lazard, against the Saints. I mean, he did a phenomenal job without Devontae Adams to get open against some of these good corners that they have, and a good secondary with guys like Janoris Jenkins, Marcus Lattimore, other guys, Williams in that backfield as well. So, I mean, MVS clearly hasn't taken that step yet that we're looking for him to be a true contributor by himself. But I still have faith in him to be a nice third guy for us. But he's gonna have to be this number 2 now with Lazard out a few weeks, and Devontae, I'm sure, will be back in week 6. So yeah, for now that's what we've got. But the ability to spread the ball around with these running backs and the tight ends is kind of making up for what we don't have at wide receiver, and that's what we're all hoping for. So I'm pretty happy with how the offense is playing and how we're distributing the ball as well.
One last thing I noticed about the offense was just, utilizing the running backs as well as the tight ends in the passing game. Jamal Williams had 8 catches for 95 yards. That was a huge game from him. He was not very effective on the run. He only had 10 yards on 8 carries. Not very impressive, but him in the passing game, he had that long 29-yarder I believe it was on the right side of the field, where he had a fantastic catch on kind of like a wheel/fly route. That was really impressive. Kind of reminded me of the Aaron Jones catch against the Lions 2 weeks ago. And Aaron Jones, again, he caught that touchdown on the first drive. That first drive was all about him. He had a bunch of big runs and then topped it off with a nice touchdown catch, wide open. He ended the day with 5 catches and 40 yards. Just, Brian, do you have any thoughts? Just was it part of the game plan, since we didn't have Lazard and Devontae, just to get these guys going with the tight end
Yeah,
as well?
yeah, I definitely think the at least from opposing defenses perspective, the idea was that they were going to throw to Aaron Jones a lot without Devontae. But what the Packers really did was incorporate Jamal Williams more than Aaron Jones. He had more snaps than Aaron Jones. And they used him in the passing game. They split him out wide, had him in line, catching balls out of the backfield, whatever it was. He did a fantastic job catching everything that came his way, and Aaron Jones did the same thing. But they just kind of switched it up a little bit in order to kind of gain an advantage, even without Devontae Adams. So for both of those guys to be catching the ball in all different areas of the field is so invaluable. I mean, it changes our offense. It's something that nobody else is doing. Nobody's got running backs, especially two of them like we do, that can go for 100 yards. I mean, both of them have done that in the past. Well, have been close to doing that in the past, and obviously Aaron Jones is an insanely good threat to run the football as well. Jamal can run the ball well at times too, but his obvious contribution comes from the passing game and the run blocking, pass blocking aspects. But yeah, both of those guys have been just spectacular for us, and I really think that their contributions have been just key for our success on the field for sure.
I think the biggest moment for the offense this week was, going towards the 2-minute warning in the first half. Rodgers ended up hitting Tanya for that first touchdown. I believe it left 2 minutes and something on the clock. And the defense had a nice stop. And I believe, Aaron had a minute something and a couple timeouts. And, we capitalized again. Aaron hit Robert Tonyan again for a touchdown. And that was a 13-point swing in the game going into half at 20-3. The defense was playing pretty solid. Obviously, only holding them to 3.5 is a major upgrade from what we've been doing, all season. And that drive just kind of showed Aaron Rodgers' excellence there. He kind of used a bunch of guys. I'm pretty sure that's where Darius Shepard's really nice 19-yard catch happened. And I think Malik Taylor had a little part of that drive as well. Ryan, can you just touch on Aaron Rodgers' game? Because he obviously had a phenomenal game.
Yeah, this was one of the best of his season, and he just continued his excellent play, his MVP caliber play. Um, I mean, he only like I said, he only had 6 incompletions, and that's not an everyday thing for a quarterback that throws the ball downfield as much as he does. So I mean, the fact that we were able to catch the football from the wide receiver position, the tight end position, the running back position, we didn't have any drops as far as I can remember, and that's so key to Aaron Rodgers actually getting those stats and having success, and us as an offense moving the ball downfield and scoring. So I thought the fact that our receivers were able to catch the ball that he threw, and he just he didn't miss much if at all. He had a fantastic game once again, and I've mentioned this a couple times over the course of the week, but I think that game put him at the front of the MVP conversation, especially with the way that the Dolphins kind of kept it close with the Seahawks, and Russell Wilson only threw 2 touchdowns, had a pick as well. Rodgers still has 0 picks. I mean, this guy does not turn the ball over, and he throws 13 touchdowns in 4 games. You're talking about this is blatantly the best start of his career, and it's mind-boggling how excellent he's playing, and with the fact that he's now as old as obviously he's 36. I mean, he wasn't playing this statistically good ever at any point in his career. And so far, this is a fantastic start for him, and our whole offense is playing at a high level. We've scored the most points in the league so far, and it starts with Aaron Rodgers, and that's why we are the best offense in the National Football League through 4 weeks.
Yep. Aaron, Russell, and Josh Allen are the 3 front runners for MVP right now. And I mean, Russell has a couple picks this year. Josh Allen has a couple picks this year. Aaron is still flawless on, I believe, is it 13 touchdowns he has this year and over 1,200 yards. I mean, he is on pace for a great year, and he's just gonna have to keep up with Russell because Russell's having a fantastic year, and both teams are 4-0. And it's unfortunate we unfortunately lost our 40 points per game status after this week, but still dropping at least 30 every game is very impressive through the first 4 weeks.
I mean, yeah, our offense is high powered. It's multiple. It's complex. There's too many variables for teams to really stop us in any way because a basic team would have a running back running the football, tight ends catching the ball, blocking, whatever, right, and receivers doing their thing catching the football. But our offense is so complex. We've got guys doing all different things, so many different responsibilities, flexibility with the positions that they play. Just we have offensive weapons. We don't have position players. Our guys they play all over the field just based on the scheme that we have. Our motion throws teams off every week. And one thing that we haven't talked about is the fact that we have maybe so far the best offensive line in the National Football League through 4 weeks. Those guys are playing so impressive football. It's just they are blocking everything. Uh, the sacks that we have allowed really aren't even their fault because the protection is there and a guy just gets free based on a defensive blitz or whatever the case is. But, I mean, our offensive line, it starts with David Bakhtiari, who has been flawless. Corey Linsley is having maybe his best year as a pro. Bill Turner's having a good year. Rick Wagner has been in at times, and he's played excellent football. Elton Jenkins is still playing great football. I mean, so the guys that we've got there are playing good, and they're playing even better as a unit, and that's the most important thing. And they're protecting the future of the franchise with Aaron Rodgers, and that's really the biggest part of why we're having success because they're blocking in the run and the pass, and it's allowing us to score all the points that we've got.
Yeah, you talking about the offensive line just reminded me. We had that drive where Matt LaFleur is he keeps being unique. He sent out 6 offensive linemen for I think it was 3 or 4 plays of that drive. He had I believe Rick Wagner was the 6th man. He just lined him up on the right or the left, whatever way we were running, and then I believe on the 3rd play we ended up passing and just kind of threw off the Falcons offense and picked up a big game there. It just shows Matt LaFleur just keeps being creative every single week. We have not seen the same thing go from week to week. It's different every week and it's working. It's just super impressive.
Yeah, and I think another thing that, the same way you mentioned how things are changing every week, we once again saw that motion that we've been doing with guys like MVS and Tyler Irvin coming through, post snap with a chance for Rodgers to touch pass it to them. But we haven't seen it really as much since that week 1 victory against Minnesota. We only see the fakes of it and the motion that throws them off to kind of get guys open and move defensive players around the field. So I still would like to see more of that, especially when we're missing Devontae, Allen Lazard. It makes it harder to pass the ball downfield. So I think, on Monday night, it would have been a good time to include more of that stuff that gave Aaron Rodgers, passing ability. While still it's just a short pass to guys like Tyler Irvin to get some nice yardage. But we were able to pass the ball downfield, and it was a successful game for the passing game and the running game as well. So like I said, if we ever find ourselves struggling in either the run game against some of these good teams like Tampa Bay that will play in week 6 or the passing game at any point, that might be the time when we start to reincorporate the actual giving of the ball to those guys that are going through motions and that are going to get the ball and run upfield with it. So I think week 6 might be one of those times where you see it come back and actually utilized.
Crazy to say, but in the Matt LaFleur era, the Packers are 6-0 without their top wide receiver Devontae Adams, and last week was the same thing. And I just feel like this offense is going to be even more dangerous once we get him back and for Tampa, and then eventually down the line we'll get EQ back. Hopefully, we haven't seen him in so long. It's been 2 years. He missed all of last season, and he hasn't played a single down this year. And then Allen Lazard, whenever he's ready from his core surgery, hopefully in a month or 2, he'll be back. This offense has weapons, and it's deeper than people think. And now we got Robert Tonyan, like I said earlier, he's kind of looking like a stud tight end. This offense is set for some good football down the season.
Yeah, and it starts with our defense, which we're going to get into a little bit here. Our defense, it started with Z this week, and he had his best game of the season. He had a lot of pressures, and he got home a lot of times too. He ended up with 3 sacks. NFC Defensive Player of the Week. He had a phenomenal game. He was disruptive, and like I said on the last episode, the key for our defense to kind of separate itself from the Falcons offense and give us a chance to avoid a shootout and get a big win was the pass rush getting home a few times and stalling drives, and which it did. It started with Z. Preston had a better football game. He's still not quite where we want him to be. Last year, obviously, he had double-digit sacks. This year, he's only got 0.5 sacks. So he's not quite where we want to be, but he's playing better, and last game was evidence of that. But Zadarius Smith had his best game of the year, and we needed that. And we need we need Kenny Clark to come back too. And once we're at full strength on that D line, I'm confident in our ability to kind of rebound as a whole unit, as a defensive unit. I think once we're back to full strength after this bye week, which we desperately need to get healthy, I think we're going to be in a good position to start, stopping guys at a better rate. And it's especially important when we start with this Tampa game in Week 6 against that Brady-led offense with those weapons that they have. It's going to be important to get him on the ground and slow them down. So I think that's the biggest aspect of our defense, and we're going to have to see good play like this that we had on Monday night going into the few weeks next to the season.
Another guy that had a huge game was Jair, just absolutely shutting down Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley coming into this week was averaging over 100 yards per game, and he had a touchdown in every single game coming into this week as well. And 0 catches, 0 touchdowns, obviously, on 5 targets. Jair absolutely shut him down as well as this defense. I just thought that was super impressive. And then, Julio, even when he was in, only had 32 yards. The secondary played very good. Just the only thing I noticed when I was watching was just, we were struggling to wrap Todd Gurley and Matt Ryan behind the line. I felt like Todd Gurley could have had a very less of a good game than he did, with those 2 touchdowns. But there's a couple of plays where Z had him behind the line and he was able to get back to the line of scrimmage. And there were some times where I thought we could have had some more sacks on Matt Ryan, but he was able to escape and, get some yards on the ground. But that was it. Tackling looked better than last week. And, the secondary in general has looked very good compared to, the first 3 games of the year.
Yeah, this was the secondary's biggest test of the year so far. Having 3 guys that have been playing well for them, including Russell Gage and the 2 guys you mentioned, Julio and Calvin Ridley. They've got a potent offense, and we were able to hold them to 16 points. And that you should win a game that you hold a team to 16 points, and we did. 30 points, that was enough, and we beat them by 2 touchdowns. And if we can play that kind of football on the defensive side, we didn't even create a turnover this week, and we were still able to hold them to 16. And that was the key factor for us, getting home, getting sacks, and then shutting guys down in the passing game. A lot of it was coverage sacks, coverage pressure, that led to some of those broken plays for the Falcons offense and gave us a great chance to win. And that's all the defense needs to do, because when Aaron Rodgers is playing as good as he is at an MVP level, best quarterback in the league level, our defense just needs to kind of shut teams down at times and give Aaron Rodgers the football back, let him go to work, let the offense go to work with Aaron Jones and the guys. And that's a recipe for winning each and every week.
Since we're talking about the secondary, Brian, let's just go over a couple injuries that we saw to their secondary. We saw Chandon Sullivan go out with a concussion. He was out for the game. As long as the concussion protocol goes all right, I'm guessing he'll be fine in 2 weeks for the Buccaneers game. But the other one was Kevin King. Brian, can you tell us anything about Kevin King's injury?
Yeah, so Kevin King, he went out with a quad injury. He left the game, didn't come back. Josh Jackson kind of filled in for the last couple quarters or whatever he was out. But hopefully his injury isn't too severe. We're gonna need him for that matchup with Tampa Bay and all the weapons they've got. And the same thing with Chandon. If he's got a concussion, he shouldn't be out for the full 2 weeks and not be able to play in Tampa. But that's a guy we need obviously too. They've got good weapons, like a young guy they've got that playing out of the slot that's playing good football is Scotty Miller, and I think Chandon can match up well with him. And obviously they've got those 2 guys, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who we're not sure what his status is going to be because he is dealing with an injury, likely won't play this week, but he's another good receiver, and they've got guys that are going to catch the football at a high level, including those tight ends. OJ Howard actually is out for the year, but they've still got Gronkowski, whatever level of play he's sitting at now. And they've got Cameron Brate, who's a good red zone weapon. So they've got guys. And we're going to need our secondary to be at full strength if we want to win that football game.
Another guy that went out during the game was Chris Barnes, our middle linebacker, who's been playing absolutely phenomenal, an undrafted guy. According to PFF, he's actually ranked as the 3rd ranked linebacker out of 84 in tackling with an 86.5 grade, which is very phenomenal because he's, according to PFF as well, he's missed 0 tackles and he has 17 solo tackles this year. And that's on very little playing time when Christian Kirksey was in, he was getting barely any snaps, and he's kind of balling out right now, and he's kind of what we need in that middle. Christian Kirksey wasn't doing it for us, and still unfortunate that Kirksey got hurt. But this Chris Barnes guy might be a like an absolute steal of an undrafted signing. This guy's looking like he could start for us in the future.
Yeah, I think he was part of the reason why our tackling was better this week than it was in weeks prior, especially that Saints game with Alvin Kamara running up and down the field. But um, like you said, he hasn't missed a tackle, and that's valuable for us for the defense. He's getting stops. He's filling that middle and stopping guys coming in. So without Kenny Clark in there to rush the passer and stop the run in the middle linebacker position for us is even more important. And they're right now doing the job, and they're doing a fine job at it. And Ty Summers had a nice game too. He, nothing outlandish in terms of bad plays. So, we've got enough guys to kind of hold the fort down without Christian Kirksey, and without really a true starter in the mix. Chris Barnes is doing well enough to kind of keep us afloat there.
And how about the safeties? We've a couple past podcasts we've been talking about how our safeties haven't been playing really well, but and I thought Amos made a kind of a game clinching play. I wouldn't say game saving because we were up 2 scores, but on that 4th and 10, Matt Ryan had his receiver pretty much wide open for the touchdown, and Amos kind of closed on that super quickly. Ball was a little underthrown, but Amos slapped it out of his hands and gave us the ball back with a little bit of time on the clock, enough time to for Aaron to run it out. And finally, we've been talking, like I said, and safeties haven't been playing good, but that was a huge play by Amos at the end there.
Yeah, I thought Amos had his best game of the year, and Savage had a nice game as well. Both of those guys kind of rebounded from what they've been doing this year, which is not playing to the level that we expect them to. And Amos, I thought, he looked like the guy that we signed back in last March. So, it was good to see him back playing at where we want to see him, and Savage being that free range guy. He had a pass breakup early in the game. Actually, the first drive for the Atlanta Falcons that actually ended in a 3 and out. So yeah, if both of those guys are playing good football for us, it's going to be a lot better for us in terms of teams passing down the field.
Brian, so obviously next week is our bye week, week 5. Kind of early for my liking. I do like a normal, like week 8 or 9, right in the middle of the season bye week. But like always, I feel like we have a very early week off, but we do play the Buccaneers the following week at 3:25. And these next 4 games, kind of, I'm not sure what to think about it because we got Tampa. Tampa's obviously not a bad team, but then we play Houston. Houston is currently 0-4, freshly off of firing Bill O'Brien. Not sure how that game's going to go just because they have Deshaun Watson, but obviously the Packers are playing phenomenal football right now. Shouldn't be a problem. And then after that, we play Minnesota for the second time. Minnesota still only 1-3 at the moment. Haven't really recovered from our loss. I think they just got their first win against the Texans last week. And then to wrap off this next 4-game stretch, we have the San Francisco 49ers on Thursday Night Football. So, Bron, can I just get a prediction out of you from the Bucs, Texans, Vikings, Niners? What do you think that stretch is going to look like for us?
Well, let me just start with saying, these next few weeks coming up are going to be interesting, especially this one coming up without a game. We're going to see 2 games starting on Thursday night that are going to be interesting for us from our standings perspective, NFC North, NFC standings. It starts with Tampa Bay versus the Bears, who are 3-1. Both teams are actually 3-1. So that is going to be an interesting game. The Bears look like a much worse team than the Buccaneers and the Packers and the rest of the kind of the contender-looking group in the NFC. But they do have 3 wins, and they're going to be competitive. Nick Foles is their quarterback, so look at that however you will. But I think that's going to be an interesting game. And then the other one it involves Minnesota and the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday night. And I think that game is going to be interesting in terms of where we'll stand and where those teams stand. Because if Minnesota loses that game, you're talking about that's like a season-ending. That's it for them, really. Their playoff hopes are kind of squashed at that point. And Seattle, we'd like to see them lose a game, obviously, for our standings purposes, seeding purposes, etc. So those are going to be interesting games. But when I'm looking at our schedule these next coming weeks, Tampa Bay, I do think that's probably going to be our toughest matchup, and I don't see us blowing them out. It's going to be, that Rodgers versus Brady matchup we never thought we'd see again, because Brady is getting older, looking like he's going to retire in the next few years. Who knows at this point? But I mean, yeah, I think that's going to be a tougher matchup, but I still expect us to win because of how much better our offense is than any defense that we match up against. And I think our defense can string plays together to kind of take advantage of an offensive line in Tampa that isn't as good as they would like it to be. And if our pass rush comes together after this bye week, like we think it did in Atlanta, I think that should be a win. And then, our next game after that is in Houston. I mean, that's a game that we should win, but they've got a great quarterback, but I do expect us to win that game. We'll see Randall Cobb there. And then we've got the Vikings again. We'll have to see. I mean, that's a divisional game. Those can always go either way. But if they're sitting at like 1-5 or whatever at that point, then we might have to, give it an automatic win type thing. But if they win a few games in a row and start to get hot, we'll have to see. I still think we'll win the game. 49ers, that's obviously an interesting game. They've beaten us twice in big ways. We have to see how healthy they can get. Jimmy Garoppolo, he returned to practice this week. They've struggled at quarterback without him. So we'll see. We have to see how they play against some of these other teams. That obviously could be a loss because of the way they match up against us, and they've got tons of weapons down the field, and they run the ball, which most teams don't in the National Football League, and they run the ball at a high level, and that's something that can stifle us a little bit. So we'll have to see. But I do expect us to win every game, because we are I think we're the best football team in the NFC. So I don't expect us to be losing games at this point. So if you asked me, I would say we're going to go 4-0. But in the NFL, you can lose any given Sunday, as cliche as it sounds. So that's pretty much what I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep, our thoughts in these first, these next 4 games, just because I don't want to look at the whole rest of the season, just because it's so unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen with us or any other of these teams. But looking at it right now, Brian, like our toughest opponents are the 49ers, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Tennessee Titans. I mean, that's not that scary of a stretch. We play the Titans at the very end, and we play, the Niners and the Colts right in the middle of the season. But still, our season schedule isn't looking like too daunting, too tough. I feel like we can really keep rolling because there is only one bye week this year, or one team that gets a bye in the playoffs for both conferences. They obviously extended the playoffs to 7 teams, meaning only that first seed gets the bye. And it's going to be a race. I mean, us and Seattle are 4-0, and we're going to have people trailing us as well. The Niners are going to obviously go on a roll once they get everyone healthy again. So we got to win a lot of games this year if we want to have that bye. But, since it is our week 5 bye week, we should probably talk about just us in general. This offense is crazy. I feel like our offense is the best I've seen personally since 2014. We're putting up enough points to be compared to that 2014 offense and that 2011 offense as well. Aaron Rodgers is on pace for a crazy year, an MVP type year. Aaron Jones is on pace for another 1,000-yard year. Needless to say, we're doing this all in the past 2 weeks without Devontae Adams, and we've developed another star wide receiver 2, Alan Lazard, who unfortunately is going to miss another month because of his injury. Robert Tonyan coming out of nowhere. Do we finally have a tight end that's, going to be considered maybe top 10 in the league? I mean, we've struggled to find tight ends in the past. We went through Jimmy Graham. Martellus Bennett didn't work. We didn't re-sign Jared Cook. Is Robert Tonyan the next Jermichael Finley of this offense? Is Rodgers finally going to have a tight end that he can trust? And then looking on the defensive side of the ball, all we got to work on is just, tackling. In the Saints game, it was dreadful, our tackling. But, we found a way to win that game against Drew Brees, a future Hall of Famer. And then, just 1 week apart from that against the Falcons, our tackling looked, pretty solid. Just a couple struggles on tackling Todd Gurley, but that's it. I mean, the secondary is playing really well. Jair and Kevin King look like a top 10 duo in the NFL when it comes to corners. Zadarius just had his best game of the year. He is, he already has 5 sacks this year. It's only week 4. That signing is going to go down as Goot's best, one of his best for sure. Bron, just help me continue on this rant. What do you think we got to improve on, if anything?
All right, so I mean, yeah, the bye week is definitely about self-reflection, self-scouting, and that's what Matt LaFleur and the guys will do. Rodgers will do it. But when you're going this good and when you're doing this well, especially on offense, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint things that I would say we need to improve on or things that we have to implement, things like that. I mean, one thing that we haven't talked about yet today and something that has been kind of a storyline all year is that we have struggled in fourth down, goal to go, short situations, and it starts with Matt LaFleur. I think he's had some bad play calls, close to the goal line, fourth and goal, whatever it is, short yardage. We've had a lot of bad play calls, and it's mostly because we like to just, for whatever reason, try to run the ball countless times with either Aaron Jones or Jamal Williams, um, and on an inside zone with Rodgers in the shotgun, and it just doesn't work, and it hasn't worked. And Matt LaFleur said it was a bad play call this past week in Atlanta, or excuse me, this past week versus Atlanta. So I think that's the one thing we have to improve on offense. It's getting better when we need to get that fourth down, short yardage situation, and we need to convert. Uh, on most other fourth downs, when it's like 4th and 2, 4th and 3, even 3rd and long. I mean, we've converted in the passing game pretty consistently, as opposed to last year when we struggled on 3rd down and 4th down all season long. This year we're converting everything, and we're catching a lot better. The guys are catching the ball out of the backfield. We're catching the ball in line with the tight ends, and then the receivers are catching the ball as well. The drops have gone away, it seems. So the offense for me is looking pretty good. That's just the one thing we have to kind of get better at.
You're right, Brown. We saw last week, Jamal Williams get stuffed at the goal line against Atlanta. We saw a couple failed fourth downs against the Saints. Pretty sure there was a goal line stop against the Lions too. That's a bunch of points off the board from an already super high scoring offense in the Packers. I mean, we were scoring 40 points per game going into Atlanta, and now we're scoring like 37 points per game. I mean, that's just to say that we've lost points off of going for it on fourth down is crazy to say, because our offense has already been that high scoring. Brian, do you want to touch on anything defensively? I know I touched on it a little bit with, Zadarius and Jair, Kevin, the secondary finally coming along, but I feel like there might be a little more to talk about.
For our defense, I think it's the fact that we've gotten off to a slow start. But I look at the landscape of the NFL, and it seems like the entire league is kind of struggling and is behind the way the offenses are playing in the NFL. When you look across the league, defenses just aren't playing as well as other teams' offenses. The best statistically defense in the league right now is the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, that's a team that you didn't expect to have the best defense through 4 weeks. And it looks like they do. So having a defense that can play at a high level is going to be valuable heading into these later weeks of the season. And we have to bounce back, and we have to kind of collect ourselves and become that team that we were last year, that got all the turnovers that we wanted to get. So far, that's been the theme. We haven't gotten as many turnovers as we did last year, and we're still winning games because our offense is playing so good. But last year, our defense was successful in that it would bend but didn't break and got turnovers at crucial times, and that's why we went 13-3. Now we're 4-0 because our offense is playing at an extremely high level. We've got the ball. We lead the league in time of possession, and our defense is not on the field much because they are either allowing quick scores at times or they're getting 3 and outs. Once in a while, they'll get a turnover, but the fact that we're not turning the ball over is amazing for us. And our defense does have to get more turnovers if we want to be successful and just be a better unit overall. But I think that will come over time. I think the whole lack of an off-season thing that everybody has talked about a ton, I think that's had an impact on the way defenses approach the game, and offenses have just gotten to a hotter start because they know what they're doing, and defenses kind of have to dictate off what other teams are doing, and that's going to be a slower start schematically. So, yeah, I mean, that's the big thing for now is to just get up to speed with the way the offense is playing, and that can make us a more complete football team and a team that can be successful in December, January, and hopefully February.
Yeah, we haven't seen this defense cause a lot of turnovers, but enough to enough to allow our offense to obviously outscore the opposing team's defense and win games. I mean, that's all that matters. But I feel like this defense will eventually turn around and start causing more turnovers and get Aaron that ball back in his hands, and we can even score even more points. I feel like we can only go up from here. We got playmakers on defense. Za'Darius is going to keep getting at him. Jair is going to come down with more picks. That secondary, I mean, those safeties are finally going to catch their groove eventually here and start causing even more plays. I mean, and who knows what we got in the middle with our middle linebackers is. I feel like that Chris Barnes guy is gonna. I think he's gonna be our savior in the middle there. If Christian Kirksey isn't playing good once he gets back, I mean, we got some things to fix up definitely, but at least we got some promise like guys like Kingsley Kiki, Chris Barnes, as he said, some guys in that front seven, young guys that we can probably count on for the rest of the year. I'm excited for the growth of our defense. I feel like it's gonna come eventually, and we just gotta watch it. It's only been 4 weeks. I mean, we're 4-0. Can't complain about anything, honestly.
Yeah, we can't complain. I mean, 4-0, Rodgers looks as good as ever, and that's really all you could ask for. Just we know that as a football team, regardless of how the defense plays, we're going to have a chance to win the Super Bowl every year when Aaron Rodgers is playing his best football, and this year it looks like he is. So that's encouraging enough. And it looks like, I mean, this could be the best defense we've had in a while. We have to be where we were at last year for that to be the case, and to give us a chance to win the Super Bowl and go to the Super Bowl and win playoff games. But, I mean, yeah, that's where we need to be, and I think we can get there.
All right, Brian, good discussion, man. And as we said, this whole podcast, the Packers have a week 5 bye, so we will not be playing this week. But as Brian said, there are a couple games to watch. Bucks at Bears. That's Thursday night. I'm not sure if this podcast will be out by the time that game's played, but that one is definitely something to watch. Both teams being 3-1, and then on Sunday night, Vikings Seahawks. Obviously, Vikings being our division rival, and the Seattle Seahawks as the only undefeated team left in the NFC besides us. Both big games. Definitely a couple. I mean, you can't complain about football on Sunday, even if the Packers aren't playing. I'm going to be sitting my butt on the recliner all day, just watching it. But we will actually be back next week with a Packers versus Buccaneers preview. We normally do record, both segments in one podcast, but we're just going to split it up this time, and we'll be back with a full preview of the Packers Bucks game. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back next week. Go Pack, go.